Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. In my latest video, which was a travel vlog slash bookshop tour of Edinburgh, I promised you a book haul, so here we are. I have, I think, 13 books from that trip, which is a lot. It's honestly way too much, and I've been really reasonable because there were so many wonderful, amazing bookshops in Edinburgh that it's been really hard to limit the amounts of books that I brought back with me. Honestly, I would have wanted to bring so many more, but I had to be quite drastic in my selection. So we're gonna go through the pile that's on my lap right now. Those are all the books I got in Edinburgh, but I also got a number of other books as well since my last book haul. This year has been a bit too too leaning on the side of buying books, so I need to be a bit more careful for the rest of the year because again, I love buying books, especially when I'm traveling. It's one of my biggest joys to just discover new bookshops and to support independent bookshops across the world as I travel. It's just a lot of fun, but also I have a tendency to buy more books than I'm able to read, and I'm trying to curb that habit. I've been very successful last year, but this year I thought I was gonna give myself a little bit more leeway, and obviously I kind of ran away with it. So here we are. I don't even know how many books I have in total, but it's quite a few. So before this video starts to get extra long, let's get started. So in Edinburgh, I got The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon. This is a novel about a young boy on the autistic spectrum who one morning finds out that his neighbor's dog has been murdered, and he tries to solve that mystery. This is a book that has a very special place in my heart because it's the first novel that I read in English for pure pleasure, not like an extract of a book for class or anything, just for the pure enjoyment of it. And so after that I read many more books in English, but this one was the one that kind of opened that door for me and gave me that confidence to read in another language. And so I have been wanting to get a copy for a while because I think I gave away the one I had before. So this one comes from RTM Books, which was a wonderful secondhand bookshop in Edinburgh with an amazing selection. It was so hard not to get dozens of books from them, but so this one was really cheap, just a few euros, and so I decided to add it to my collection because again, it's a book that I really love, even more for the symbolism of it in my life as a reader than for the story itself. But I would be quite keen to reread it. I might do that for Neurovember, which is an event that I host in November, obviously, all around neurodivergence and neurodiversity. So I might keep that one on the side for Neurovember. Next we have Venice Requiem by Khalid Liamlahi. This is translated by Rose Schwartz, and I didn't realize at the time, but it's actually translated from French. So I could have actually read it in the original, but I saw this book in Lighthouse Bookshop, again in Edinburgh. All that first round of books is from Edinburgh. So this one is from Lighthouse, which is a queer-owned, woman-led bookshop that has a very activist slash intersectional, feminist, queer, all of that good stuff kind of angle to its selection. And this one is set in Venice. I think it's the story of an immigrant man who ends up drowning in one of the water channels in the city. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know that I am fascinated by Venice, so I'm always curious to pick up books that talk about the city in an unusual angle or something a bit different. So this one caught my attention. It's also very short, So I'm curious to read it and see if it's any good. But yeah, I'm also curious to see what I will think of reading a French book in translation. I think that might be interesting. The next two books are kind of a last minute purchase. I already had my stack, which I had to play Tetris a little bit to fit in my luggage going back home. But there was still a bookshop at the airport in Edinburgh, and they had an offer. I think if you got like 2 books, the second one was half price or something like that. So it was a very good opportunity for me to pick up Wild Axe Shore by Charlotte McGonaghy. I don't think I need to talk about this book that much because it's been everywhere. I have pretty much all of this author's books on my TBR. I think the premises really intrigue me. I'm not sure this is the one I want to start with, but this was the one that was available. And yeah, I'm really curious about this author. I've heard so many good things, and so I think this one has been longlisted for the Women's Prize as well. So quite keen to read it and see what it's all about. I don't know if I will start with this one again from this author, but we'll see. And then the second one is This Is a Love Story by Jessica Soffer. So it seems to be very much kind of the story of a long-term couple who's been together for decades and kind of looking back on their story. I do love a good kind of marriage analysis and just like the study of a couple. That's kind of a type of story that I tend to really enjoy and be very curious about. So I'm quite keen to read this. Next we have Bad Fiction from Rebecca Sarah Leigh, and I think this is the story or kind of a book looking at the relationship between a young writer in a writing workshop and her tutor or mentor, and that relationship might be a bit toxic. This is a book I got from Rare Birds Bookshop, which is a bookshop that specializes in women's writing. So I tend to naturally be more drawn to women's writing, and I want to support women's writing because the publishing industry, the literary prizes are still dominated by men, especially white men, even though the majority of readers and a very large chunk of writers are women. I was really excited to visit this bookshop where I could just pick any book from the shelves and know that it was written by a woman. So yeah, I am a writer myself, and I'm always excited to pick a book about writers and the struggle of writing, the process of writing and getting published, and the kind of relationships between writers is also quite intriguing and interesting. So this is a fairly short one. I think it's on the kind of literary side of things, and yeah, I think it might be an intriguing one. Then we have Nightfaring in Search of the Disappearing Darkness by Megan Eves Jeans. I'm probably butchering that, I'm really sorry. This is a non-fiction book about a topic that I am fascinated about. I do love astronomy, not astrology. So kind of watching at the stars and studying the deep sky and all of that. I used to go on summer camp to do some astronomy activities. I love that so much. And I've also been concerned with just the rise of the light pollution, which means that it's getting harder and harder for people to access a clear night sky. So this book is all about that, and I think it's going to be incredibly interesting. I can't wait to pick this up. Then we have The Artist by Lucy Steeds. I don't remember the pitch exactly. I think it's in the 1920s in Provence, in the south of France, and kind of the story of a woman who's seen as a muse but kind of want to rebel against that, I think. That's the very vague idea I have of this book, what I can remember from it. This was a kind of lucky find at Waterstones in Edinburgh. The book was on sale, and it's a gorgeous edition. It was already on my radar, and I think it's also been longlisted for the Women's Prize. So I am very curious to read this, especially in this stunning edition. Next we have Sunrise on the Reaping by Susan Collins. I read the Hunger Games trilogy for the first time last year and absolutely loved it. This came after I decided to rewatch the movies to see if they still held up years later, and I think they do. I still really enjoyed watching them, and then I decided to pick up the audiobook, which I enjoyed so much. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it, and so I still have to read the other book, which I think is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I still need to read that, and then I want to read this other book, this other prequel to the trilogy, which is all about Haymitch run in the Hunger Games, I think 25 years before Katniss. This is a stunning edition. I had seen it in a bookshop when I was in Prague in December and didn't pick it up and regretted it afterwards because it was cheaper than what I could find in France online, and I definitely want to read this. So when I saw it on sale in a bookshop, it's not really a bookshop, but kind of a sales or good deals kind of shop in Edinburgh, I jumped on the occasion and it was like, I'm not gonna let it pass a second time. So yeah, I'm really excited for this. Again, this is absolutely stunning. This is another book I got from Rare Birds Bookshop. This is Helm by Sarah Hall. And I wonder if it's been longlisted for the Women's Prize too, or maybe it was one of Helen's predictions in her videos, but I don't remember the details again of the blurb. I just remember that it's, I think, told from the point of view of the wind, which sounds so intriguing, and just at that I was hooked and I knew I wanted to read it. This sounds so weird, and at the same time I think it could be a great literary experience. So yeah, I'm very intrigued, and I definitely want to read this sooner than later, but I have so many books on the list, I don't know how I'll do. Then we have another find from Armchair Bookshop. So this is a secondhand book and it's Becoming Beauvoir by Kate Kirkpatrick. And so this is a biography of Simone de Beauvoir, who is a French writer and philosopher and a very interesting woman that I did read, I think, 2 of her memoirs. Like, she has a whole series. I think it's probably 4 or 5 books, and I read at least the first 2. But I would be kind of interested to see also like a biography of her, just like have an external perspective on her life, because obviously memoirs are kind of, there's storytelling involved as well. It's not necessarily the truth, and I mean there is in a biography as well, but I think it would be interesting to have an external perspective on her life, especially from an American point of view, because I think this author is American. And maybe that could be the opportunity for me to reread the first 2 books in her memoirs that I've already read and maybe finally finish them. Then we have Half-Light by Mahesh Rao, and this is a work of Indian literature about 2 men who are attracted to each other. I think we follow them at different stages in their lives, and especially at the time when India was about to decriminalize homosexuality. So I think it's going to be a very interesting read, probably one that I can pick up for Pride Month. This is a book I picked up at Type Wrongers, which is an amazing tiny bookshop. There were 2 bookshops next to each other, McNaughton's, which is like a secondhand bookshop, and then Type Wrongers, where the founder was a former bookseller at Shakespeare and Company in Paris, which is an amazing English bookshop in Paris, which is now unfortunately way too popular and way too touristy. But they worked there and they learned to repair typewriters. So that was their kind of side gig at the time. And then they came back to Edinburgh and started Type Wrongers, which does a lot to support local writers and encourage people to write. They do have kind of residency programs for local authors, and in the bookshop they also have a public typewriter, so anyone can sit down, get a little tutorial about how to use the typewriter and write something. I thought it was a really, really delightful place. They also gave me a little dragon origami with my book, which I really appreciated. It was so cute. And then the final book from my trip to Edinburgh was from Macnaghten, a secondhand bookshop neighbour to Typewrongers, and I got Sal from Mick Kitson. I decided to pick this one because it's set in Scotland. I think it's also a first edition and it's signed by the author, which I didn't know when I purchased it. And I think it's the story of two sisters who I think are running from abuse, and in their travels across Scotland kind of encounter people and experience the kindness of strangers. So that combination of, again, like set in Scotland, the kindness of strangers was something that I love, kind of convinced me to pick up this book. So those were the 13 books I got from Edinburgh, but I have another pile. This is a bit nuts. So let's go through them quite quickly. At a library sale, I got this graphic novel for €1, which was a steal. This is Suzette by Fabien Toulmé. So this is in French. I don't know if it's been translated, but I've read a series of graphic novels by this author about a man from Syria who kind of loses everything in the war and tries to immigrate to Europe and ends up in France. And it's beautiful and heartbreaking, and it kind of shows you that the migrants that we saw in the media are just regular people like you and I. They had a job, they had an apartment, they had a car, they had a life in their country, and things happened that could happen anywhere that forced them to flee. So this was an amazing graphic novel series that I absolutely love. And so when I saw that there was another book from this author, I was really excited to pick up. This is about kind of a road trip that a woman does with her grandmother, and they talk about their love life, and the granddaughter learns about a love story her grandmother experienced, I think, in Italy years and years ago, and so they're heading to Italy in honor of that relationship. This sounds absolutely lovely. It's probably going to be a bit emotional as well, so I'm excited to pick that up. For some reason, at some point I was talking with my husband about kind of mangas and animes that I really, oh yes, I remember. I was in Bilbao with my husband for the weekend, and we ended up eating in this Japanese restaurant with a full-on anime decor, which was amazing and so much fun. And so we ended up talking about the mangas and animes that we loved when we were kids, because France, if you don't know, is the second consumer of mangas after Japan. We in France love mangas and we love animes. People of my generation grew up with a TV program that would show a bunch of different animes like Sailor Moon, Cat's Eyes, Nicky Larson, Dragon Ball Z, all of that good stuff. So we were very much bathed in anime when we were kids. And one series that I loved, which came a little bit later, is Sakura Card Captor. And I used to have the whole collection, and at some point, with all the moves and everything, I sold the books. And now I was feeling nostalgic from that conversation, and so I found a bunch of those mangas on a secondhand site, and I think I paid like €10 for 8 volumes. So that was quite a steal. I'm missing a few, but I managed to find them as well on secondhand sites. So it's probably going to be a bit more expensive altogether, but that was a steal, like €10 for all of this. That was amazing. And so Yeah, I'm excited to be rereading the series. I think that might be something that I do in May, which is my birthday month, and I want to do a bunch of fun, whimsy, witchy stuff. Melanie, if you're watching, I'm thinking of you. And so I'm thinking maybe kind of rereading that childhood favorite might be a good thing to do. So yeah, I'm excited. That just arrived today and I'm super excited. Next, we have this book by the Japanese author Nahoko Uehashi. In English, this is called Moribito. I think the Guardian of the Spirits or something like that. This is a YA fantasy. I don't really remember what it's about. It's something that was voted up for my SFF book club that I started in my local area. So that's something that we are gonna be discussing in May. It's fairly short. I couldn't find an affordable edition in English, like on secondhand shops. They were like 80 euros or crazy amounts. So I ended up going for this old kind of library secondhand edition in French. So it's going to be interesting to be discussing that book with English speakers. But yeah, I think it's going to be fun. Again, it's translated from the Japanese. This is going to be the French translator. So in French, it's translated by Yoshimi Minemori and Patrick Honoré. I don't know for the English version, but I can put it in the on the screen. Then another book club pick is Stories of Your Life and Others by Ted Chiang. This is the book that we are going to read and discuss in June. So I thought I would get a head start and order it at the same time. This is a collection of sci-fi short stories. And I think this is books trying to escape. I think this is a very well-loved author, and I've heard good things about this short story collections, which is reassuring because I don't typically read short stories, but I was also excited to have that picked up because it will fit perfectly on my Reddit fantasy bingo board for the 5 short story prompt. So yeah, crossing a lot of things at once. Then we have this brick, which was sliding away, trying to escape. This is The Strength of the Few by James Islington. This is the second book in the Hierarchy series, the first one being The Will of the Many, that you've probably seen on a lot of channels. I read The Will of the Many last month, or in April, for my book club, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. It's not a perfect book. I do have kind of criticism of it, but I thought that it was enjoyable and entertaining enough that it was easy to forget the flaws. And it was interesting because as we were discussing it with the book club, I realized that there were more things that were less than perfect. But at the same time, we had so much to talk about and to discuss, and theories and interpretations. So I think that's the sign of a great book, when you have so much to talk about. And so at least a couple of people in the book club immediately jumped into book 2. One already had finished. This is a break. This is over 700 pages. So again, very engaging. And yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes. I think book 3 won't be out until next year though, which is a bit of a pain. But that should keep me occupied for a little while. Next, this is a beautiful book from a free little library. This is Davy by Irène Frein. This is a French novel, and I picked it up because it's about Poolin Devi, who is a famous Indian figure. She was a woman from a lower caste who had a very rough life and ended up kind of leading a group of what's the word in English? Bandits. She was like the queen of the bandits, and she's such a fascinating figure. I do have her autobiography on my 26 for 2026 list, and I was curious to pick up this novel about her. I think there is also a graphic novel which I would be very curious to read. All right, we're almost at the end. The last 3 books are the books that I picked up on my trip this last weekend in Bilbao, Spain. So the first one is a collection of short stories on solar punk, which is a genre that I don't really know about, or at least I didn't know about before I went to this bookshop. It's a stunning edition. It was the only book in English, I think, in the shop, but it was perfect. And yeah, I think solar punk, from what I understand, or at least what my husband tells me, is just like, it's kind of sci-fi in a world that is basically powered by the sun or kind of renewable energies. So I think it would be very, very intriguing, again, for someone who doesn't read short story that much. Yeah, we'll see how that goes, but I do love The Shine, and again, I think this was kind of emblematic of that bookshop in Bilbao. Next, we have a short novel, I think this is YA, Donde no mueran las flores by Maheva Nieto, and I picked this up. It's set in the 70s in Valencia, and I think it's about women who has like weird powers. Anyway, it's just like witches and stuff. It's fairly short. Again, it's YA, and the language seemed easy enough that I felt that I could probably read this book in the original Spanish, because I want to practice my Spanish and improve my Spanish, especially because I'm going to be going on vacation in Spain at the end of May, beginning of June. So I need to boost my Spanish comprehension a little bit. And so that felt like a good way to do it. And then the final book that I picked up is a graphic novel about movies and kind of cinematography. It's divided in different essays about different aspects of cinematography, like decor, costume, all that kind of thing. It is by Edward Ross and is translated into Spanish by Carlos Mayor Ortega. And I used to love movies, and like years ago, go to the movies all the time. When after high school, I had a couple of years in my studies that were extremely demanding and I was not happy in those studies. And at the time in France, you paid like 20 euros and you could have an unlimited pass to the movies. And so I would spend so much of my free time watching movies at the cinema, sometimes kind of organizing my schedule so that I could watch 3 movies in the same day. I was extra. And over the years, I think with streaming, with just life and work and all of that, I kind of lost that, and I barely watch any movies anymore, which is a bit sad. I think nowadays, again, feels very sad, but it feels like it's such an investment to spend like 2 hours watching a movie. And also, I don't know, I feel like I don't enjoy the movies that are coming out now as much. I don't think the quality's there. They are starting to be very long for no valid reasons. The trailers are just giving away everything. So yeah, and also just like going to the cinema is just so expensive now. Again, like when you imagine that I could see as many movies as I wanted in my early 20s for 20 euro a month, this seems ridiculous today. So all of that just led to me just not watching movies anymore. And so recently I've started very slowly kind of rewatching some of my old favorites, and it's just a delight. And so all of that comes like to say that I think I would like to pick up a little bit of education, like educate myself a little bit about cinematography and have a bit more of a critical eye on movies and be able to just analyze them a little bit. I do really like Dylan is in Trouble. He makes kind of commentary videos about movies, and it's mainly just fun and humor, but he sometimes has very insightful comments about kind of, again, like the cinematography, how the things are shot and all that, and I just find it fascinating. And so I think this could be like a double whammy of me practicing my Spanish while also learning a little bit about that topic that I'm really curious about. So there you have it. Those are all the books that I've purchased recently, and yeah, I have a lot of work, I have a lot of reading to do, which is not work, which is fun. But yeah, I really need to get going. So I'm gonna leave you now and do as much reading as I can. I think I probably should do like a little challenge for myself, which is like maybe I could do like a read one book a day for a week or something, and just like tackle the quick and easy reads from my TBR, because yeah, it's still growing, which is a problem. So yeah, let me know in the comments if that would be something that you would like to see. And what's the latest book that you've added to your TBR? Tell me all about it and why you're excited about it. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.